In our 7th corporate law webinar series, in our SEBI LODR, we've been discussing about the obligations on listing of specified securities. First, we started with the principles and the disclosure obligations for all listed entities. Then in part 1, we discussed about the obligation of listed entities and compliance officer. In part 2, we discussed about all the corporate governance requirements together with the relevant schedules. And then we discussed about the related party transaction vigil mechanism. And in part 3, we also discussed about regulation 30, 31, 32, which is the material event or material information and which are required to be disclosed immediately to stock exchange and when it has to be disseminated, such information to stock exchange. During part 4 last week webinar, we discussed about the financial results, Reg 33, 34 and 35. 34, annual report and its contents. And in 35, we discussed about the annual information memorandum and we also noted the fact that the prescribed format is yet to be released by the board. Board in the instant case will be SEBI. Today, in part 5, we are going to discuss about regulation 36, 37, 38 and 39, friends. With this brief background, let's get into today's provisions. My sincere thanks to Aishwarya for this presentation. To make it more a practical study, she has also introduced 2 case studies relevant to the regulations. These are various legends used in today's presentation. First, we are going to discuss about Reg 36, dealing with documents and information to shareholders when it has to be submitted to shareholders. Then, Reg 37 deals with your draft scheme of arrangement along with Schedule 11, which makes it obligatory for all listed entities to obtain the no objection letter or observation letter from stock exchange prior to submission to any court or tribunal with this draft scheme for approval. So, when a company is going for a merger, acquisition, demerger, takeover, as envisaged under 230 to 234 of Companies Act 2013, then it is mandatory for these companies being listed entities to take first clearance from stock exchange, post obtaining either their no objection or if they provide some observation letter stating that these are all the points which you have to comply with before going for the scheme of arrangement, then they have to comply with those observations as noticed by the stock exchange, and after rectifying those observations they have to seek necessary approval from shareholders and also go to the court or tribunal for necessary approval. Today we are also going to see the format for approval. What is the checklist as mandated by the stock exchanges? What are the prescribed documents which you will be submitting under regulation 37 along with a practical case study? Then we will move on to regulation 38 which deals with MPS, minimum public shareholding. Case law relating to MPS where SEBI wide adjudication order had imposed penalty on a listed entity. There were several notices issued to a lot of listed entities after this was mandated. Why? First amendment to SCRR, which is your securities contract regulations during the year 2010, post which for at least 105 listed entities, non-compliance to the minimum public shareholding, which is mandated under your securities contract regulation, was provided, sent. And this is one of those companies. We will be seeing the practical approach to it, how it was dealt with by this company and what was the penalty imposed by SEBI for violation of this MPS norm. Finally, we will conclude with regulation 39 which deals with issuance of securities and dealings on unclaimed securities. Let's first discuss about regulation 36. A very simple provision, friends. But it makes it stringent for all the listed entities to provide the documents and information to shareholders and also post it on their website together with dissemination to the stock exchanges concerned as soon as these informations or documents are submitted to your shareholders. What are they? Soft copy of your annual report which is sent to your shareholders who have registered their email IDs. When this regulation was notified, for the purpose was mentioned there, which means I am a shareholder of a listed entity. I will send an email to my listed entity stating that for the purpose of annual report requirement, you may like to send the annual report in the soft copy, which means for any other dissemination of information by the listed entity, they have to certainly send it by hard copy only, which means only for this annual report purpose I am restricting the scope. But now, effective 1st April 2019, wide LODR amendment, this for the purpose is removed. So, soft copy of the full annual report for those shareholders who have registered their email ID with either the entity or depository. Depository will apply when your shares are held in demat form, where your CDSL or NSDL will hold your email ID accounts, and they will in turn share with your RTA, and RTA will either provide it to the listed entity for submitting, or RTA, since they are operating for several other companies, they will share this email and submit the company with a proof that the listed entities annual report has been submitted to all the shareholders. And shareholders who have not registered their email ID, then hard copy of this salient feature of all these documents as prescribed in 136 of the Companies Act shall be sent across. If you read 136 of Companies Act, it clearly says that the documents, standalone financial statement, consolidated financial statement, auditor's report, together with all the annexes which are mandated to be submitted to your financial statements, shall be sent to every member of the company at least 21 days before the meeting. And finally, Regulation 36 says that hard copy of full annual report shall be sent to all those shareholders who request for the same. I am a shareholder of a listed entity. I am not a tech savvy. When I am not seeing my emails regularly, I will send a specific notification to the listed entity stating that I would prefer to have the hard copy sent, in which case the company shall separately track those shareholders who have separately sought for this particular requirement and comply with this particular requirement. Otherwise, the company is violating the shareholders' right. Annual report, again, regulation also in sync with your section 136 says that it shall be sent not less than 21 days before your general meeting. With regard to director's appointment or reappointment, annual report shall contain certain information as prescribed in your regulation 36. A resume of the incumbent director and his expertise. He is being appointed in an insurance company, whether he has necessary expertise, necessary skill or competency for this particular role to be performed, and inter-se relationship between directors. I am a director in a company and my father is also a director, in which case inter-se relationship between the board members shall certainly be disclosed. And if I am holding the directorship in any other listed entity, or a member or chairman of any other statutory committee of any other listed entities board, the same shall be disclosed together with the shareholding of non-executive directors. If I am holding shares in the company, I have to specifically mention that. And disclosures made by listed entity with effect from 1st April 2019 shall be in your XBRL format, or they clearly say that to facilitate the shareholders to search and identify which are the information which you have submitted on the portal, it shall be with a searchable tool. However, the exception is, of course, for scanned documents, because you may not have the search tool effectively used for this purpose, and hence they say that document in searchable form need not necessarily apply for your scanned documents which are uploaded. And with regard to your auditor's appointment or reappointment also, what is the intended fee which you are proposing for the statutory auditor, and what is the basis for recommending such appointment of this particular auditor, statutory auditor in the AGM? The matters with material facts shall be stated. Let's move on to Regulation 37. Friends, just a quick recap. Before going to Regulation 37, we all remember that we started our LODR session from Regulation 4 with the principles and disclosures, and in Regulation 11 we discussed about the draft scheme or arrangement, which is again in principle in line with the Regulation 37, which is the draft scheme of arrangement, which has to be certainly placed before the stock exchange for approval. Where in Regulation 11, it was clearly mandated that all these listed entities shall submit the scheme of arrangement well in compliance with all the security laws or the rules or bylaws as mandated by the stock exchange, which means you have to comply with the scheme in line with your Securities Contract Regulation Act, SEBI Act, Security Contract Regulations, together with all other bylaws and rules of stock exchange. Subsequent to which, Regulation 37 clearly says that before you approach your court or tribunal in the instant case being your NCLT, it is mandatory for the listed entity to take no objection letter or observation letter from the stock exchanges concerned before they approach the court or tribunal. Of course, why the SEBI circular dated 6th March, a prescribed fee is also specified, which is a non-refundable fee as specified in Schedule 11. We are going to see that in the next slide. And the court or tribunal, we generally go for approval under section 391 to 394 and 101 of Companies Act, which is your compromise or arrangement, or 230 to 234 and section 66, which is your reduction of share capital or compromise or arrangement in the case of your merger, amalgamation, demerger, takeover, as the case may be. Schedule 11 deals with the fee, where it says it shall be 0.1% of your paid up capital. So it depends on the paid up capital. However, there is a threshold, the maximum cap being 5 lakhs. And fee, the mode of payment is also prescribed over there through NEFT, RTGS or IMPS mode, or by way of DD in favor of SEBI payable at Mumbai. LE, listed entity shall obtain such NOC or observation letter before filing the scheme, which we discussed, and the validity of this letter is 6 months from the date of issuance for submission of the scheme, which means within 6 months for submission of the scheme, you have the validity for submission, for onward submission to the court or tribunal. And you shall also ensure compliance with other requirements as prescribed by a board, which means in your observation letter, if there are any other strings attached to and indicated by the board, you may have to comply with that before you proceed with the scheme for approval. And upon sanction of the scheme, the listed entity shall submit the document to stock exchanges as prescribed by the board and stock exchange from time. So, pre-approval by the court and post-approval by the court also, the information has to be passed on to stock exchange and SEBI concern. And of course, in 2 cases, this particular provision, Regulation 37, is not applicable. Effective 15th Feb 2017, this particular provision is not applicable with regard to a merger of wholly owned subsidiary with a holding company. Of course, the company shall file for disclosure purpose the draft scheme with stock exchanges. Only thing is, they need not wait for the no objection letter before submission of the scheme to any court or tribunal. And with regard to any resolution plan, which is under your IBC, Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, if such particular scheme of arrangement is in relation to this particular IBC resolution plan, in which case it is exempt, which means they need not wait for this no objection letter for completing this resolution process. However, whatever statutory disclosures are obligated for the listed entity, they may have to certainly comply with it. These are the prescribed documents which have to be submitted by the listed entity. This is the format as available in your stock exchange website. And also this is more in line with this March 10, 2017 circular, where the guidelines is given and the format is standardized for all the listed entities to provide the valuation report, compliance certificate, complaints report. So we are going to see each and every document which has to be submitted by the listed entity in detail. Draft scheme, of course, your rationale for the scheme and the brief recital of your transferee company, the entire details of your scheme together with pre-post shareholding pattern, capital structure and your exchange ratio, everything will be as reflected in your scheme which has to be submitted. Valuation report as per your SEBI circular dated 10th March. The valuation report, friends, has to be provided by an independent chartered accountant, and it also exempts in certain cases that the valuation report is not required. When the shareholding pattern is going to remain the same, A is the transfer company, B is the resultant company. When the shareholders of A or quite similar, not only quite similar, identical to the shareholders in B, and the shareholding proportion is also going to remain the same, which means if each person is holding X percentage in this A company and they're going to hold the same percentage in this B company, the resultant company, after this proposed corporate restructuring, then there is no need to go for valuation report. Point number 2, when there is no addition to any new shareholder, which means there are 20 shareholders in the B company also you're going to have only 20 shareholders, there are no additions and there is no exit of any shareholder, which means the 20 number is going to remain the same and there is no reduction in the number. In all these 3 instances, valuation report is not mandated for. And report from audit committee recommended this particular draft scheme together with the valuation report and fairness opinion by a SEBI registered merchant banker with regard to the valuation of assets or shares. Shareholding pattern, you have to give the pre-shareholding pattern, and post your merger, what will be your proposed shareholding pattern, you may have to state. And last 3 years audited financials shall be disclosed. And in Annexure 1 of this particular stock exchange checklist, they have clearly provided what are all the parameters of your financial statement which have to be provided. Auditor certificate. Again, in line with your SEBI circular dated 10th March 2017. In auditor certificate, they have clearly mentioned that the auditor has to certify that the company has complied with all the valuation norms as prescribed in your section 133 of Companies Act, the valuation as set out by Institute of Chartered Accountants of India and in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principle. And it clearly provides a strict rule in the circular that if there is any deviation, then the auditor shall not provide that as a note. So if there are any deviations, it cannot be accepted, which means it can't be a qualified report as certified by your auditor. And detailed compliance report, which has to be signed by the company secretary, CFO, managing director, confirming compliance with various statutory matters. If you see the format as provided in the SEBI circular, it clearly spells out the corporate governance requirement as specified in your SEBI LODR, that is Regulation 17 to 27, which we discussed already. And then it also talks about conformity with compliances of SEBI Act, SCRA, Securities Contract Regulation Act, rules, and whatever bylaws as provided by Stock Exchange, which has to be jointly certified by your company secretary and MD. And there is again a joint compliance certificate to be provided by a CFO and managing director with regard to the valuation standards as set out in 133 of Companies Act, ICAI standards and generally accepted accounting standards. And documents required to submit wherein approval of shareholders are required to be obtained while e-voting. In SEBI circular, again, it clearly says that the companies shall certainly provide the facility for e-voting when there is such scheme of arrangement which is going for approval. And also, there is a clear mandate provided for all the listed entities stating that the public shareholding shall, if they are voting in favor, it shall certainly exceed the public shareholding who are voting against in certain instances. What are they? When it is going to be this takeover for slum sale, that is selling or disposing the whole or substantially the whole of the undertaking of the company. Again, SEBI circular explains that the substantially whole of undertaking is as provided in your section 181A of Companies Act, which is nothing but a 20% of the consolidated turnover or net worth, consolidated net worth of the company. So that threshold has to be taken into consideration. And not only that, the public shareholding certainly shall be more in favor when such proposal comes. It is more to protect the minority shareholders. That is the intent, friends. And there it also provides few other scenarios, which also includes that the listed entity is also providing for this particular transfer in relation to a scheme where the other party, that is A, the transfer company, and B is another transferee company, where this additional shares are being held by promoter group or related parties of the promoter group or associate of this promoter or promoter group, in which case this public shareholding voting is important. Not only that, when the listed entity is going to merge with its wholly owned subsidiary And in the wholly owned subsidiary, again, you have all these stakeholders, promoter group, related parties of these promoter group, in which case also it is mandatory that the public shareholding vote is more against the public, more than the public shareholders who are voting against this particular resolution. And pricing certificate from statutory auditor, practicing chartered accountant, or practicing company secretary in line with your ICDR regulation shall be appended, and pre and post scheme net worth of the company involved in the scheme are required to submit the certificate from statutory auditor, PCA or PCS. Of course, the board resolution where you are recommending this particular scheme subject to approval of shareholders shall be annexed, and brief details of the transferee company, resulting company, transferor company as per the format provided in Annexure 2. All these annexures are provided in this SEBI circular dated March 10, 2017, more to standardize the format so that all the listed entities have uniform format. And in this brief details of the scheme, if you look at Annexure 2, it clearly talks about the registered office details, the PAN of the transferor transferee company, the rationale of the scheme, why they are opting for the scheme. All these details have to be provided. Over and above this, Regulation 37, unread with the SEBI circular, clearly says that this shall be in accordance with if there is any sectoral regulator approval. Say you are an NBFC listed entity. If RBI has to approve the scheme and they are providing for any additional norms, you may have to certainly comply with those regulatory authorities norms as well. And over and above this, if there shall not be any change to the scheme. You are going to submit the scheme to stock exchange now for approval. Post which there shall not be any change except for these regulators who are going to provide for any suggestion to this change, be it MCA or RBI or IRDA, who are providing any suggestion to the scheme, that can be done. Other than that, if there is going to be any change, you may have to again go to SEBI for approval, is what it is clearly mandated in this regulation. And you shall also confirm that none of the company promoters or directors are under the willful defaulters list as provided by RBI, and confirmation by managing director company secretary as per the format enclosed in Annexure 3 of this checklist. More with regard to the compliance of all the bylaws and rules of the stock exchange. And in case of demerger, again a certificate from the auditors PCA or PCS certifying the percentage turnover and profitability of this division vis-a-vis the Hive Dog division, and name of the stock exchange, designated stock exchange. So out of all the stock exchanges, you are listed with 2-3 stock exchanges and you are having one stock exchange for the purpose of coordinating with SEBI, that stock exchange is called designated stock exchange, which will be coordinating with SEBI to take the approval process on board. Complaints report. Here, if you are going to receive any complaint after submission of this particular scheme, that is after expiry of 21 days of submission of this draft scheme to the stock exchange, within 7 days, you have to provide the details of all the complaints, whether you have received directly in the listed entity or when it is routed from some other stock exchange, all the whatever is received and what is resolved and what is pending. So if you have received 10 complaints from your investors, out of which 5 you have resolved and 5 are pending, you may have to provide all those details. And we already discussed about the processing fee, which is 0.1% of the paid up capital, subject to a maximum cap of 5 lakhs, which is payable to SEBI, and to exchange, it is 2 lakhs plus applicable service tax. And this shall be signed and submitted to the stock exchange. And post receipt of their no objection letter, you can proceed with this particular draft scheme to be approved by the court or tribunal. And here they have provided explanation that free reserve for this purpose shall be your section 2 subsection 43, which is free reserve not set apart for any specific purpose and available for your distribution as dividend. Let's look at a practical case study. Ora Soaps is a holding company. Subsidiary GIL, Godrej Industries Limited, which is layer 1. Again, Godrej Industries has 2 subsidiaries, GPL, GAVL, Godrej Properties and Godrej Agrovet, layer 2, which means proviso to section 2 subsection 87 of the Companies Act and the company's restriction on number of layers that a company could have. That rule 2017 also clearly says that it shall not be, no company shall have more than 2 layers of subsidiaries. And after this particular company's restriction on number of layers rules was mandated. This particular company had approached because the company wanted to incorporate new subsidiary or step down subsidiary, means this particular rare restriction did not allow them to have a company beyond 2 layers, and hence an application under regulation 37 was submitted by this company for obtaining no objection letter with regard to amalgamation of VSL with GIL Limited, where ORA was the transferor company and the transferee company was Godrej Limited. And the proposed scheme, of course, had the valuation report given by Price Waterhouse PwC, and 19 crore 39 lakh 4,681 shares of the transferee company at 1 rupee each. The proposed scheme had issued and allotted to the equity shareholders and CCPS holders, compulsorily convertible preference shares holders of the transferee company, in proportion to their holding in the transferor company. On 5th January, this scheme was submitted to Stock Exchange, post approval by the board and pursuant to Regulation 37, and on 17th December, this scheme was approved by NCLT. If you notice, prior to this NCLT approval, the scheme was in accordance with Regulation 37 submitted to Stock Exchange for obtaining their no objection letter. Regulation 38 talks about your minimum public shareholding, where the listed entity shall comply with Regulation 19(2) and 2A. If you read securities contract regulation, it says that the minimum public shareholding shall be for any listed entity at least 25%, which means the public shareholding is 25, promoter shareholding is 75%. Why is this particular minimum public shareholding imposed, friends? If you read Gillette versus SEBI case, it clearly says to restrict the concentration of shares lying with few market players and to have equal and justifiable role, minimum public shareholding of 25% was imposed. And 19A clearly mandates that every listed entity shall maintain this minimum public shareholding within 3 years from this particular securities contract regulation amendment, first amendment which came into effect on 4 June 2010. And if a company falls below this 25%, within a period of 12 months, they have to achieve this particular threshold of 25%. So we will again see this with a case law. We already discussed in the beginning that after this particular regulation was notified, and 30th November 2015, there was a SEBI circular which made it mandatory for all the listed entities to have this MPS norm complied with, and stock exchanges SEBI gave wide power that these companies certainly fine could be imposed and they could freeze the promoters' shares, and they could also be barred from trading as promoters in other entities until this particular MPS norm was met with. And also in October 2017, this particular MPS norm was again re-emphasized by SEBI issuing another circular stating that for all those companies which are violating this particular norm, this particular stringent penalty of 5,000 every day if they are violating this MPS norm shall be imposed, and after 1 year also if they are going to continue this penalty, it shall be double, which is 10,000 after the expiry of 1 year for violation of this MPS norm. In this company, Mivan Machine Tools MMTL, the due date for compliance was 3rd June 2013. On 4th June, an interim order was passed by whole-time member of SEBI with respect to 105 listed entities, out of which this was one such entity, where the promoter shareholding, if you notice, is 86.19, whereas public shareholding was only 13.81, which is less than your 25% now prescribed. And hence, SEBI had sent an interim order to company as to why penalty shall not be imposed. And this company took several actions, out of which the first action was they wanted to go for delisting process. They received shareholders' approval, but they could not achieve this particular threshold within the stipulated time. Therefore, they sought extension of this particular delisting process in the second action, but this time the resolution was not passed. Finally, they went for OFS mechanism, which we popularly call it as offer for sale mechanism. And why this particular mechanism, the company was successful to transfer the shares and they could well establish this MPS norm. So the promoter thus they transferred 11.19% and the resulting shareholding thus became 74.99 for promoters and public was 25%, 25.0008, which is over and above the norm prescribed, and hence they complied with this particular requirement. However, before achieving this particular threshold, the company was provided with several show cause notices, which was on 28th May 2018. Why penal action should not be imposed? SEBI had sent a show cause notice. The company gave response on 10 June 2018, and there was a personal hearing by managing director, company secretary, and practicing company secretary on behalf of this company. After hearing the personal representation made and in response to the show cause notice, the company was imposed with a penalty of 10 lakhs for violation of this particular norm, which is Regulation 38 of your SEBI LODR. We'll conclude with Regulation 39, friends, where Regulation 39 deals with issuance of share certificates, security certificates, and every company shall mandatorily comply with Rule 19.3 of your securities contract regulation rules, which provides for all these dissemination of information to your shareholders, be it for your transfer, consolidation, dividend, letter of allotment. So all these documents or information have to be mandatorily submitted to your shareholders, and the timeline is also provided with regard to transactions where within what time you have to send it to the shareholders, more to protect the interest of the shareholders. Likewise, the certificate or any receipt shall be issued within 30 days from the date of lodging the certificate. And if there is a loss of share certificate or issue of duplicate share certificates within 2 days of obtaining the information, the listed entity shall certainly submit the information to the stock exchange. And Schedule 6 deals with your unclaimed suspense account. We will be concluding by saying Schedule 6. So here, Rule 19.3 gives the big list of what are all the condition precedent for a listed entity to comply with. Like the company has to intimate in advance when there is going to be a declaration of dividend, and after declaring the dividend, the company has to certainly inform the shareholders so that they will be sure of the corporate action. Likewise, for bonus shares, the company has to give pre and post intimation about the decision taken, and if there is a transfer of share within 1 month, the company has to issue certificates to the transferee. So all those timelines and the TAT requirement for the listed entity, the company shall comply with more in consonance with your provisions in Rule 19.3 is as mandated in your Regulation 39. Schedule 6 talks about manner of dealing with your unclaimed shares. What is unclaimed share, friends? I am a shareholder, but I am not an approachable shareholder, which means the company is not able to trace me. They are sending a lot of letters to me, but I am unidentifiable or untraceable shareholder, in which case, how do they handle it? Schedule 6, read with Regulation 39, provides the detailed standard operating procedure as to how you have to deal with these people. So these shareholders, you have to send at least 3 reminders to the address which is last registered. If it is physical shares or if it is in dematerialized form, the address as captured in your NSDL or CDSL database. And in case of non-receipt of response, after sending all these 3 reminders also, if you are not able to trace that particular shareholder, what will happen to those shares? If it is going to be in demat form, it will lie in the account of depository participant opened by the listed entity. And if it is going to be in physical, then you will open a separate account called USA, Unclaimed Suspense account. And you will also disclose this in annual report, which we saw in our previous webinar. And the details of shareholding, if I have 12 such shareholders in my listed entity, and for each shareholder, how many shares vis-a-vis the number of shareholders, you may have to disclose those details. And you also have to confirm that you have taken all necessary steps and actions to identify those shareholders. An account shall be held by this listed entity in abeyance on behalf of the shareholders. Just because I am untraceable, the company should not usurp those funds, be it a dividend or be it their particular shares, which means the company shall certainly act in conformity with the provisions of 124(5) and 124.6 of Companies Act. If you read 124.5, where there is unpaid account and which is unclaimed, after a period of 7 years from the date of declaration of dividend and after the expiry of 30 days within which you have to disperse the dividend in terms of the provisions of Companies Act, it will go to your IEPF fund, which we all are aware of. Likewise, shares which are unclaimed, it will be transferred to your IEPF fund along with the statement of details. That is the number of shareholders against which, what are the shares and what type of shares, what class of shares they are holding. All those details you will be maintaining in consonance with the provisions of 124.6. So regulation 39 again says that you have to follow the procedure as enshrined in your regulation 39 with regard to the reminder letter sent and to keep those rights, entitlement rights of those shareholders in accordance with the provisions in regulation 39 more to protect the interest of these shareholders. Friends, with this we are concluding today's part 5 webinar. We'll be continuing with this session in our next week as well. Thank you very much. Stay safe. Take care.